Obi-Wan Kenobi series cancelled, and other Disney Plus failures. Welcome to Not My Star Wars, where we talk about Disney, Disney Plus, and of course Star Wars. I have a bunch of Disney Plus nonsense to cover, so let's go. Today is January 24th, 2020. The only positive thing that I can report is yesterday on January 23rd, they announced a new series of Dr. APHRA comics coming in April of 2020, created by ALYSSA Wong. Some of us know Dr. APHRA as Chelly. She's a very cool character. I've used her in some games, and she has some really nice comic books. It would be nice to see a Dr. APHRA show on Disney Plus. We'll see what happens. There was rumors of it. I think APHRA is a delight. She's out for herself, for fun and profit, and that drives her actions more than any internal moral compass. Wong tells StarWars.com. It makes her really fun to write. APHRA acts according to her whims and desires, which gives her an edge of unpredictability. But the second you think you've got her number, she chooses to do something that leaves her vulnerable. Whether that's an unexpected moment of nobility or bitter betrayal. No matter which side APHRA is currently on, you can count on her to be deeply selfish, and that's what I love the most about her. Again, she's a very cool character. We'll see what happens with her in the future. May 1st, 2019. Fantasy film Willow could be headed to Disney Plus as a TV series. Actor Warwick Davis could be returning as character Willow, Youth God. Fast forward, January 23rd, 2020. Willow, Warwick Davis sequel update for Disney Plus. George Lucas's Willow is in development for the streaming platform Disney Plus. Ron Howard previously revealed that there were discussions with John Kasdan about developing the series, and Kasdan posted on social media that writing was underway for the series. Willow star Warwick Davis is now chiming in with his own update on the series or sequel to the original film. In an interview with Inverse, Davis discussed the return of Willow but insists the fans are ahead of where the project actually is in development. The internet has gotten a little bit ahead of us here, Davis said. There's a lot of work on development and working out what this potentially could be, but there's no definite green light. Go, we're doing this. There's a lot of work going on. The right people have come together. There's a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of goodwill from the right people and also from the fans. I think that's what's really so heartwarming is the enthusiasm from people around the world. So yeah, no definite news there. I think there's a firm chance that this is going to be something that becomes a reality. Definitely. So in typical Disney fashion, they're continuing to discuss it and still haven't concreted anything. Disney as usual, with their heads up their asses. In other Warwick Davis news, at the end of The Rise of Skywalker, there's the celebration by everyone on the different planets, and they show Endor. You can see two Ewoks there at the end, side by side, celebrating. It has been confirmed by Warwick that is Wicket and Wicket's son, which is interesting because the actual actors are Warwick and his real-life son. So both the Ewoks and the actual actors are father and son. Kind of neat little thing. It's the one detail in the entire movie that Disney actually got right, that they actually paid attention to detail, because the rest of the film is an upside-down mess. Now I want you to take a look at these images and tell me if anything looks familiar to you guys. Is any of this ringing a bell to you? This is from Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars on Cartoon Network. If the name isn't ringing a bell, think Dexter's Laboratory, Samurai Jack. This was a micro-series that ran on Cartoon Network from 2003 to 2005. You can see it on my YouTube channel. The entire 25 episodes are there if you'd like to see them. These images are from that cartoon. Perhaps some of you will remember these images. Do they ring a bell at all? Does this look like something familiar to you, perhaps? Specifically, the scenery. These images are from an episode where General Grievous was first officially introduced into the Star Wars universe. Before the movies, before any comics or anything, this is General Grievous's debut. Any of this look familiar? How about now? Does this look familiar? This crashed Star Destroyer on Jakku? Are these images bringing back memories now? Does this stuff look familiar to you? You see, it's ironic because in 2014, Disney announced they were retconning everything and that the only things that were going to be official canon are the original 6 movies, of course the Disney movies, and the new Clone Wars cartoons. That everything else before was not canon because it was too mixed up and jumbled up. Yet, Disney very conveniently is constantly dipping into the EU to use material for their new stuff. So as you can see, this scenery, it sure looks familiar, doesn't it? You see all the wreckage on the desert planet, Star Destroyers broken down. And in case you think I'm reaching, Genndy was quoted yesterday, the 23rd. The Force Awakens opening sequence with all the Star Destroyers crashed on the planet, that was literally exactly the setting that we did for when we introduced General Grievous. It's even the same silhouette and everything. I mean, they could have come up with it without seeing ours, but it seems too suspicious, and nobody credited us. A few people caught it, but it certainly, to me, was like, wow, hey, look at that. That's exactly what we did. Well, yeah, I'll take it. Disney acts like their stuff is the only real canon, and yet they're constantly dipping back into the EU, including the original Clone Wars cartoon, which they said is not canon, and they're using elements. They have been caught on several occasions taking other people's artwork and images. They claim that the old stuff isn't canon, and yet they're all mixed up using old stuff to fill in gaps and fix holes that they've created for themselves. They are such a clusterfuck over at Disney. It's amazing that they're still in business. On August 17th, 2017, The Hollywood Reporter announced Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi film in the works. A lot of you probably remember that there was going to be several films. Boba Fett, Han Solo, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
There has been a lot of talk about maybe you coming back.
Yeah.
If George Lucas calls you, are you in?
Yes, I would totally do it, of course.
Oh.
Yeah. There's no plans as such to do it, as far as I know. But it's so funny, I've been asked this question for years and years. And I would be happy to do it. I think there must be a good story to tell as they're doing spin-offs. There's likely to be a good Obi-Wan between maybe me and Alec Guinness in that time.
There must be.
I know that there's been a lot of talk of wanting you back and you would be interested in it. What's the situation right now with that?
Just that. There's a lot of talk, and I'd be happy to play him again, but I don't know any more about it than you do. There's no plan at the moment.
In February 2018, Disney CEO Bob Iger revealed that a few Star Wars live-action series were in development for Disney's streaming service. November 8, 2018, StarWars.com. Cassian Andor live-action series announced. Disney Chairman and CEO Bob Iger announced today that Lucasfilm is in development on a second Star Wars live-action series for Disney+, the company's new direct-to-customer streaming service. The series, which will go into production next year, remember this is November 8th, 2018, so in 2019, will go into production next year, follows the adventures of Rebel spy Cassian Andor during the formative years of the rebellion and prior to the events of Rogue One. Diego Luna will reprise the role of Andor. Going back to the Star Wars universe is very special for me, said Luna. I have so many memories of the great work we did together and the relationships I made throughout the journey. We have a fantastic adventure ahead of us, and this new exciting format will give us a chance to explore the character more deeply. On November 30th, it was announced the series is scheduled to begin production in October of 2019. On July 11th, 2019, it was reported to be in talks of undisclosed amount of episodes for the series, with the filming scheduled to begin on October 7th of 2019. In April of 2019, there was Star Wars Celebration in Chicago, where they were announcing more things about Cassian Andor. August 23rd, 2019. The actors behind Cassian Andor and K2SO were also reunited. Ever since we learned that Alan Tudyk was joining the series that will bring Diego Luna back to the role of Cassian Andor, on Friday, fans got a glimpse at the camaraderie between the two actors behind the scenes of the prequel. "It's been hard 3 years," Luna said, "since his character met his end in Rogue One, a Star Wars story. My kids won't look me in the eye. But there's no name for this series, at least not just yet." On October 15, 2019, Variety reported that Rogue One co-writer Tony Gilroy would be writing the pilot for the series in addition to directing multiple episodes. October 18th, 2019. According to Collider editor-in-chief Steve Weintraub, pre-production on the Disney Plus series has been shuttered for weeks over dissatisfaction regarding the miniseries story and scripts. Before news of the cancellation went public, Tony Gilroy signed on to write the pilot episode for the series. On December 12, 2019, Discussing Film reported that the series would begin filming in June 2020, with shooting taking place in Europe. They also reported the series would focus on a 13-year-old Andor and his 9-year-old sister, and that the role of the sister was planning to be cast. Disney's jumping all over the place. They're saying that they're going to start filming in October, then they're saying they're going to film in June of 2020. They first said that it's going to be Cassian and K2SO. Now it's going to be Cassian as a 13-year-old with his 9-year-old sister. That they're having script problems, and we haven't heard anything else about the show. Me personally, and no one that I know, no one that I have read, gives a damn about this show. So it doesn't really matter. Honestly, I think it's been canceled. There's been no other talks of it, and it's been already having problems before they even started. This goes back to the same point. Disney announcing things before they're even in any kind of pre-production. They don't even have the scripts together, and they're announcing shows. They're flip-flopping the stories around because they can't decide on the scripts, and it's fallen off the radar. I have not read a single tweet, post, message, forum, board, anything that anybody wants this show. They put it out there to see if anybody was interested, and they saw that nobody gives a damn about Cassian Andor. January 25th, 2020, Diego Luna talks new Star Wars series for Disney Plus. Luna has yet to start shooting the prequel series, which will join The Mandalorian in charting a new streaming future for the Star Wars franchise. However, he said he's excited to reprise his role. "I'm happy to be a part of the universe because I grew up watching these films," said Luna. "Having a chance to explore the new role in 10 hours, or as many hours as we get, is going to be great." It was said to start filming in June of 2020. Well, we're about to be in February, so they still have time. However, they have yet to start shooting. There's no mention of scripts being done, screen tests, casting, anything. Then you've got Luna saying to explore the role in 10 hours, or as many hours as we get. So he doesn't even know how many episodes, how many hours. There's no plan. He doesn't even know what's going on with the show. He's just excited to reprise his role. The main actor doesn't even know what's going on. How many episodes, when they're going to start. He has no insight because Disney has no clue what they're doing. In just past few months, they've changed the story all around. They don't even know what they're going to do. Disney announcing shows, trying to get people hyped up, and they don't even have their shit together. So there you go. Another failure by Disney Plus.
Diego, you're about to start a Disney Plus show about Star Wars. What is it that excites you about that possibility? What are you excited about? What are you allowed to say about it, I guess?
Spoilers, go.
Yeah, no, I'm not allowed to talk about it, which is great because I haven't started. So, but I'm just happy. I'm happy to be part of that universe because I grew up watching those films and having the chance to explore the role in 10 hours or as many hours as we get. It's going to be great.
In April, in Chicago Celebration, they announced Project Luminous. Project Luminous is a multimedia project, mostly books and comics, that are set to fill in the gaps or lead into future film projects. It's not totally been revealed what Luminous will be doing, but there's been a lot of speculation and there's talks of a video game that's coming out as part of Project Luminous. While this has not been 100% confirmed yet, the word is that Project Luminous is developing a new video game set in the High Republic era, presumably helmed by EA Games, which will lead us into the next saga of movies. So Disney started announcing a bunch of shows, and then Solo happened. That movie totally flopped. They lost millions of dollars, and then Disney announced that they were going to pump the brakes and canceled all the side story movies. Then they started announcing shows to replace them, and they've been having nothing but problems. There was a Lizzie McGuire show that was announced and has been canned. The Cassian Andor show appears to be canned. The Willow show has been talked about for a while and has made zero progress. And now let's get to what everyone came to this video for. Obi-Wan Kenobi. On the 17th, a bunch of leaks started coming out that the show had had been canceled. No one wanted to believe the information and was saying that it's all rumors and that a parody Twitter account reported it, which it was not the case. That Twitter parody account did not break the news. And a lot of people were getting flack, including myself, for reporting that the Obi-Wan Kenobi show has been canceled. January 17th, Twitter, Grace Randolph. I am also hearing that Obi-Wan Kenobi has been canceled on Disney Plus. When, if Disney confirms, I will cover. January 17th. What I'm hearing, creative differences between McGregor and Disney might still be going on, so both saying the rumor is false. We'll know soon enough. January 17th, Grace Randolph. Okay, I triple checked it with other sources. Obi-Wan show 100% having behind the scenes drama between Ewan McGregor and Disney. At the moment, the show is not canceled, but insiders say that's still something that could happen if this drama is not resolved. Scott Wampler, January 18th. One fun thing about the Kenobi hoax, quote unquote, story is seeing people wave it away as a result of a tweet from a known parody account, when in reality, people were working on breaking that story long before that tweet went up, and they had very good reasons to be investigating it. Now, I didn't break the story. I'm not claiming to be the first, but I was talking about this before that tweet, as were many other people. Grace, it's a real story. January 20, Obi-Wan. Reasons people think the show might be canceled is crew was put on indefinite hold, all looking for other work. Costume designer who was just hired wasn't. Old news, but was released perhaps to thwart cancellation talk. Star Wars certainly doesn't need more drama. So I wanted to highlight Grace. She was one of the insiders that was reporting on this, and everybody attacked her, calling her bullshit. She didn't know what she was talking about. Then sure enough, yesterday, the 23rd, Collider decides to come out and say the series has been put on hold as the crew have been sent home. So she's of course laughing, told you last week, because everybody was attacking her, and now that bullshit Collider wants to report it, everybody's like, oh, I guess it's true. Grace, January 23rd. I told you on Monday Obi-Wan Star Wars was on indefinite hold. Only today do Collider and THR report it. I'm the only woman breaking news, and it's tough. A lot of trolls out there refuse to give me credit, but you all know I have the tea, so grateful for your wonderful support. I'm not calling Grace the absolute authority on everything. I watch her videos. She sometimes makes little mistakes about Star Wars, but she's an honest person. She does have inside connections, and she has been reporting on this. So I just wanted to highlight her and give her props because she spoke out about it, and everybody was calling bullshit, and here we are. She was correct. Hashtag Grace was right. January 23rd, Collider. Last week, troubling rumors began swirling about the upcoming Disney Plus series revolving around the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Ewan McGregor is poised to reprise his role from the Star Wars prequels in a story set 8 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith. Now keep in mind, that means Luke would be 8 years old. Screenwriter Hossein Amini Drive and director Deborah Chow, The Mandalorian, were tapped to spearhead the series, and production was on pace to begin this year. These rumors hinted at potential trouble behind the scenes, and while we're hearing the show isn't canceled, we are hearing that it's been delayed. Two independent sources with knowledge of the situation tell Collider that the Obi-Wan series has been put on hold, as the crew that had assembled at Pinewood Studios in London was sent home. A time frame was not given, but the crew was told that the show would be down indefinitely. As Grace reported several days ago, the crew was sent home and they are looking for other work. She also reported that the show is canceled indefinitely. And what does Collider report from their sources? The show would be down indefinitely. Now, as some people seem to be confused as to what indefinitely means, for an unlimited or unspecified period of time, to an unlimited or unspecified degree or extent. I'm fully aware that TV and movie land likes to throw words around loosely, and that indefinitely is often used for projects, and sometimes they come back, sometimes they retool them and rework them, and all of that is fine and dandy. But just by definition, coming from insider sources, the show has been indefinitely put on hold. So stop saying that the show is not canceled, because it is in fact canceled until further notice. notice. That's what indefinitely means, folks. It doesn't mean that it'll be back or we haven't gone anywhere. Indefinitely means everything's shut down, everyone was sent home, and until we figure out what the fuck we're doing here at Disney, the show is canceled. Can they get their shit together and bring it back? Do they desperately want to have an Obi-Wan show? I'm not arguing that, but facts are facts, and the show has been indefinitely put on hold. So they can word it as they want. It's not canceled, it's just on hold indefinitely. It's the same damn thing. Indefinite is indefinite. That's absolute. The show has been canceled until further notice. We're hearing that Lucasfilm president and Obi-Wan producer Kathleen Kennedy was not happy with the scripts. Sources tell us that what will most likely happen next is the scripts will be reworked with the hopeful goal of reassembling this summer, but there's always the possibility that that time frame could shift. It sounds like Kennedy would rather ensure that the story being told with this Disney Plus series is as good as it can be on the page before they roll cameras. And rather than move forward with hesitations, she's asked that they go back and rework what's on the page. Think to yourself, Force Awakens had a bunch of rewrites and reshoots. Rogue One had a whole debacle of reshoots. Last Jedi probably was the smoothest of all the projects, but it had reshoots. Solo, they had to redo about 80% of the film. It was a total disaster, firing directors and redoing the movie. And then The Rise of Skywalker, you've got the Trevorrow script, and you got JJ admitting that he just finished the film November 25th when it was coming out December 20th, that they were redoing things, all these leaks and rumors and problems. Every project that Disney's involved with has undergone restructuring and either has been canceled or has come out completely different from what they had originally planned. And you're telling me that when they don't like the script, that the Obi-Wan show is going to happen. It's time to wake up, folks. This show is gone. Now, what Collider failed to report, the scripts are really, really good. They want to make them better, he explained. This is Ewan McGregor. And they just slid the production to shooting next year. We've gone for more than 4 years. They've been talking about this show. Ewan McGregor has been lying, literally lying, about being involved with the show.
You were at Comic-Con. You kept a secret for like 4 years, right?
Yeah.
And now it's coming back. You're going to play it again.
Yeah.
You're going to reprise that.
That's right.
Yes.
It was
Isn't that amazing?
Thank you. It was. It's awkward because the studios and the franchises, they want to keep everything totally secret, of course, which I understand. But as the person being asked over and over and over again, would you do it again? Would you do it again? And I'm already talking to them about it, but
Right.
I can't say that I am. So
Right.
for 4 years I was saying, well, I'd be happy to do it again if I'm just waiting for the call. But all the while, so this
You
was
were
embarrassing.
acting. You were acting even when you weren't acting.
Lying.
What's the difference between lying and acting?
You get paid to act.
Now he's saying, oh no, it's all fine. It's just pushed back a year. When a show has script problems, when people are getting fired, when everything's being rewritten, and it's been indefinitely put on hold, and now they're going to start shooting next year. When something is working, when something is in line, you don't push it off for a year. Obviously there are problems, and obviously this show is indefinitely on hold. In other words, canceled. Could that change in 6 months? Could that change tomorrow? Could that change whenever? Sure. But as of right now, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show is canceled. So of course they had Ewan come out and make a bunch of statements so that everybody's not panicking. So it's not as dramatic as it sounds, McGregor added. I just got here tonight and it's like, oh my God, look at all this stuff. It's not that dramatic. I think we have the same. We're airing on the same day and all that stuff. The Hollywood Reporter reported the project has been put on hold while the streaming service attempted a retooling. Sources told THR that just 2 scripts were written, but the story became an issue and that the entire package had been jettisoned. Kathleen Kennedy claimed that the scripts were completed and they were ready to start filming. And here we are several months later where they're having disputes. The show is pushed back a year and they're going to redo the scripts.
After secrets and fibs and not being able to talk about it, Ewan?
Yes?
Are you going to play Obi-Wan Kenobi again?
Yes. It feels so nice. It's been 4 years of saying, well, I don't know, we've been talking, or maybe if they call me, I'd be happy. But now I can say, yes, we're going to do it.
tell you we are really close. We have all the scripts written. We are ready to start shooting next year. We could not be more excited. So can't wait to start production.
They have also moved the show from 6 episodes down to 4. It is unclear why scripts have become an issue so late in the process, noted THR. One source said Kenobi's story treaded similar ground as The Mandalorian, seeing the Jedi Master lending a protective hand to young Luke and perhaps even a young Leia, perhaps mirroring how the Mandalorian took Baby Yoda under his protective custody. Collider failed to report the high-luster Obi-Wan Kenobi revival for Disney Plus has been paused for a reshuffling of the creative team. Hussein Amini is no longer attached to write, and the show will go back to the drawing board and wait for a new hope to emerge for a show that has a star in Ewan McGregor but no clear battle plans. Deborah Chow remains on board as director along with McGregor. So what most people are not reporting is that not only they were reworking the scripts, but that is in part because the original writer of the show is no longer with the show. And here we go again with Disney's mess ups. They're firing people and changing stories and rewriting scripts, and now the show's on hold for another year. Ewan McGregor has been put to task to do damage control for Disney. McGregor expanded. It's not that dramatic. It's not been put on hold. It's just being pushed back a little bit. Well, what's the difference there, Ewan? The scripts are excellent and they just want them to be better. So we just pushed it back, but it's not. It's very dramatic, it would seem, online. There's all kinds of shit online about it, but it's only just slid back a bit. A year, a bit. Everyone sent home to find new jobs, a bit. We're still shooting it. I think it will still be aired when it was meant to be, and I'm really excited about it. It'll be fun to play again. I think it will still be aired. Speaking to IGN, now that Episode 9, Star Wars Rise of Skywalker came out and everyone at Lucasfilm has got more time to spend on the writing, they felt they wanted more time to write the episodes. I've read about 80-90% of what they've written so far, and it's really, really good. Instead of shooting this August, now we're talking about August, they just want to start shooting in January. That's all. Nothing more dramatic than that. No, not dramatic at all. It's only been pushed and pushed and pushed, and everyone's sent home, and you've fired the writer. You're restructuring the whole show. So what are you talking about, Disney, and what are you talking about, Ewan McGregor? Obviously, there's a huge problem going on with this show, and I will repeat, it has been canceled. Will it be uncanceled in the future? Maybe, but as of right now, this show is not going to happen. Later, Collider updated, but they did not report this at first. THR, not Collider, the Hollywood Reporter, confirming the report, also notes that Lucasfilm is looking for a new writer to replace Amini and planning to scale the series back from 6 episodes to 4. Speaking with Variety at a Birds of Prey fan event in Los Angeles on Thursday night, the 23rd, McGregor confirmed a 2021 start date. So we went from 2019 to 2020 and now 2021. He told Variety, I think we start shooting early next year as opposed to summer this year. I think the scripts are great. They're in really good shape. They want them to be better. I think we keep our same air date. So as you can see, Ewan himself is saying, I think. Now, how are they going to keep to the same air date when they keep pushing the show back? They're now redoing the scripts. They have to find a new writer, and all the crew has been sent home. Use common logic here. The show is obviously not going to come out on the same air date, if it even comes out at all, because as of right now, the show is canceled. Now, I want you all to think logically about this show. I love Obi-Wan Kenobi, like everyone. I think Ewan McGregor did a fantastic job of portraying him. I have nothing against the show, nor Ewan doing it. But be realistic. Luke would be 8 years old. You're going to do 4 episodes. What interesting thing could you possibly do with Obi-Wan on Tatooine with an 8-year-old Luke? He'll be over watching him. Maybe he saves him in some event. But in the original Star Wars, Luke never indicates that he knows Obi-Wan. He knows the name Old Ben, but he could have heard that at the converter station. He could have heard that at the cantina. His friends could have been talking about him. He could have heard some sort of story, local legend. It doesn't mean that they've even met. Just because Obi-Wan's watching over Luke doesn't mean they have a direct connection. He just knows the name. He might have heard Aunt Beru or someone talk about the name, but it doesn't mean that Luke has a direct connection to Obi-Wan. So what are you going to do in that time period and with 4 episodes that would even merit making this show? He gets a glimpse of Luke, or he saves him one time. He can't leave the planet because he's risking being detected. He's one of the last Jedi left that are alive, and he's a very honorable man, so he's going to stay on Tatooine and overwatch Luke, especially since he knows what happens with his father, and he had to chop his father down to prevent him from being Darth Vader. So obviously Obi-Wan's not going to be taking missions and going off world and doing all kinds of extra stuff. He's going to be on Tatooine. Now what are you going to do in 4 episodes, Luke at the age of 8 with Obi-Wan Kenobi? Is that very interesting? No, it's not. You are risking implicating problems with the canon of the films. Disney needs to leave this alone and not screw up Obi-Wan's story, because that's what they're going to do. Had they wanted to make a movie and dedicate something cool to him, fine, but it has to be before A New Hope, or maybe him afterwards as a ghost. But to do something with Obi-Wan on Tatooine with an 8-year-old Luke, and then putting implications of maybe even a young Leia, that's saying that he would have had to have left, go to Alderaan, somehow influence Leia's life, and then return to Tatooine, and that's just not realistic. He's an old hermit. He probably doesn't have credits. How's he even going to get off the planet? And he would be wiser than to be frolicking around and risking Luke being discovered by Darth Vader. The whole thing, while it sounds cool, Obi-Wan Kenobi, I get it. We all love Obi-Wan and we all want to see him. But you have to be realistic. Treading on this ground means nothing but trouble. It means retconning, and it means breaking canon, and it means Disney doing some ridiculous story that isn't even going to fit because he would risk being caught by the Empire. And that's just not the story that George Lucas made. We have to come to grips that Obi-Wan went to protect Luke, stuck by his duty, and became a hermit. The extent of it is him going to the cantina to get a drink. It's not an interesting show, and it's not anything that they should mess with. I would love to hear your guys' comments. What do you think they could do with the show? Really, it's a very small gap of what they could even do with the show. You have 4 episodes with an 8-year-old Luke. What are you going to do there? I'm sure if we all got creative, we could come up with all kinds of wild ideas, but be realistic. Without damaging the original Star Wars, what are you going to do? There's really nothing there. So it's better that Disney leaves this alone and not fuck up Obi-Wan Kenobi's story for them to get Disney Plus subscribers. January 25th, and on Reddit, there's been an exclusive Kenobi Disney Plus info post. We don't know if this is confirmed yet, so take it with a grain of salt, but it's some interesting stuff. A source close to the writing process for the series, or what it was going to be before the recent changes, has disclosed some information to me regarding some interesting plot points. 1. Sherrod Hett would be recanonized with some changes to his character. 2. Hett would go into hiding as a Tusken Raider after Order 66. 3. The main conflict would come with Hett sensing Luke and figuring out who he is. He would seek to kill Luke out of fear that his presence would lure Vader and Palpatine to Tatooine. We find out that Kenobi has been carrying both his and Anakin's saber. As many have reported, internal conflict would revolve around Obi-Wan's PTSD and depression. 6. Climax of the final episode involves Kenobi defeating Hett with both his and Anakin's lightsabers. 7. Final scenes are Obi-Wan putting Anakin's saber in the box, not to be reopened until A New Hope, and Obi-Wan watching Luke from a distance. Again, we don't know if this is real, but it sounds like it could have been. I found this interesting for 2 reasons. The first reason is that on February 9th, 2018, someone had uploaded a video, Asherrod Hett in Obi-Wan Kenobi movie. And it's just a guy that made a theory of he would think it would be cool if Asherrod Hett from the comic books would be put into what he thought was going to be a movie at that time as the protagonist. Also, a year ago, someone had posted on Reddit, Obi-Wan in exile fighting former Jedi Asherrod Hett, Darth Krayt on Tatooine. Might be nice to see this in the potential solo Kenobi movie. So that's interesting because this is a cool story in the EU, and those 2 different guys we're just speculating that that would be cool, and it makes sense because of Tatooine. So it would have made sense that it would be in the show, or something that they could use in the show. Disney, taking from the EU, is pulling from the Asherad Head story for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. Again, we don't know if this is real, but I found it interesting that Disney again is taking from the EU, that they decanonized. The other interesting part that I found is that this story isn't quite correct. Sharad Het is much further back in the timeline. The person that actually has a battle with Obi-Wan on Tatooine is Asherad Het, who is Sharad Het's son. Asherad Het has quite a complex story, as does his father, Sharad Het, but it basically goes like this. Sharad Het had exiled himself from the Jedi Order. He was a very powerful Jedi, and he crash landed on Tatooine. He then integrated himself into the Tusken Raider culture, met a wife that was a slave in the camp of the Tusken Raiders, and he eventually became their warlord, taught them how to fight. He had a son, Asherad Het, who was born on Tatooine around 47 BBY. BBY before the Battle of Yavin, the first Death Star, Star Wars. Sharad Het is later killed by Aurra Sing on Tatooine, and his dying words are to Ki-Adi-Mundi to train his son. Ki-Adi-Mundi takes Asherad Het to Coruscant and takes him into the Jedi Temple and begins his training as a Padawan. Over time, Asherad Het becomes a very powerful Jedi himself. He fights in the Clone Wars, and he is a friend of Anakin Skywalker's. Anakin at one point reveals to him that he had killed all the Tusken Raiders in that camp. They weren't the same camp as Asherad's family, but it still caused a little bit of disturbance between the two because Asherad grew up as a Tusken Raider, essentially. They didn't fight or anything. He kept Anakin's secret because he thought it would cause more problems in the galaxy if he ever told anyone. Remember that the Clone Wars is from 22 BBY to 19 BBY. Order 66 gets called, all the Jedi are killed, or at least most of them, and Asherad Het is one of the few Jedi that escapes. He goes back to Tatooine, his home planet, reintegrates with the Sand People, and unites several tribes of the Tusken Raiders and becomes a warlord. This is around 19 BBY. This is also at the time where Revenge of the Sith happens, and the twins are born, and Obi-Wan takes Luke to Tatooine, 19 BBY. Asherad is on the planet for about 2 years, and right around 17 BBY, Luke would be 2 years old. There's all kinds of conflicts between humans and Tusken Raider camps. The Tuskens feel that the humans are infringing on their territories, so they're having all these skirmishes. So in 17 BBY, Asherad, going around attacking human settlements, comes across the Lars settlement, where Luke is living. Obi-Wan, of course, overwatching Luke, senses something, feeling that it could be the dark side, and goes to aid Luke. It turns out that Obi-Wan and Asherad, who knew each other from the Clone Wars and from the Jedi Temple, meet each other, and they're both kind of shocked because they didn't know that each one was alive. Obi-Wan pleads with Asherad to stop the attacks and to leave the homestead alone. Asherad refuses, so then they get into a battle. They have a very tough battle. Obi-Wan is very much challenged, but in the end, Obi-Wan cuts off his right arm and defeats Asherad. This, by the way, is happening with Tusken Raiders watching. So Obi-Wan cuts off his arm and removes his mask, which is a huge insult to the Tusken Raiders. It's kind of like the Mandalorian, no one's supposed to see your face. So when Obi-Wan removes Asherad's mask, all the Tuskens feel disgrace towards Asherad, and they turn and leave, basically abandoning him and exiling him out of their tribe. Asherad then says to Obi-Wan, "I'm finished, just kill me." Obi-Wan refuses and says, "No, I'm not going to kill you, but you have to promise that you're going to leave Tatooine and never return." Asherad agrees. He leaves Tatooine. There's a whole lot more that goes on with him, but in the distant future, he goes through all kinds of things. He goes to the unknown region. He gets captured, gets influenced, and turned to the dark side, and he eventually becomes a very powerful Sith who lives over 100 years, known as Darth Krayt. He names himself Krayt for the Krayt Dragons of Tatooine. That's a whole other story. He's a very powerful Jedi, and then he becomes a much more powerful Sith, but that's the basic story of Asherad Het. So it's interesting because this leak touches on some of that stuff, but in a kind of backwards way. So let's look at this list again. Number 1, Sharad Het would be recanonized with some changes to his character. Okay, so Sharad Het in 1999, Dark Horse Comics introduced him. So he was decanonized, of course, in 2014 when Disney decided everything wasn't canon anymore. So the father, Sharad Het, would be recanonized. That's fine. However, Sharad Het doesn't fit in the timeline. He's much older and would have not come across Luke when he's a baby or a small child. But it fits in the sense that they could recanonize Sharad and then eventually his son. 2, Het would go into hiding as a Tusken Raider after Order 66. Well, as I just explained, it's actually Asharad, his son, that goes into hiding after Order 66, because his father, Sharad, is already dead before the Clone Wars. It's Asharad, the son, who goes back to Coruscant, trains, becomes a powerful Jedi in the Clone Wars, and survives Order 66. So already the first 2 are off because it's the son story, not the father, Sharad. And I'm not sure why they would do it this way, unless, of course, Disney, as always, wants to recreate the story how they want to do it and screw up everything from the EU. The main conflict would come with Het sensing Luke and figuring out who he is. He would seek to kill Luke out of fear that his presence would lure Vader and Palpatine to Tatooine. Okay, that again is twisting the EU. Het, the father, wouldn't sense Luke because he would be dead already. It would be Asharad. He would also later, after the conflict with Obi-Wan, discover that Anakin had become Darth Vader and that Anakin's son, Luke, was the one at the Lars homestead. This is after Obi-Wan had beat him. He later discovers that Luke was there, and that's why Obi-Wan was preventing him from attacking that homestead. Throughout time, Asharad got twisted by different events in his life, and Anakin telling him that he had slaughtered the Tusken Raiders. So in reality, the real story goes that Asharad would have wanted Anakin / Darth Vader to come to Tatooine so that he could face him. So again, here they're tweaking the story that he would have fear that the presence of Lord Vader, but on the contrary, he wanted to find Anakin and kill him, but then he discovered that he was already Darth Vader and he couldn't do that. But he did want to, of course, go after Vader. Further in the story, when he's becoming a Sith, he goes on this whole tirade of taking out Skywalkers. He wants to go after Anakin, but he can't at that point. Anakin gets defeated, so then he wants to go after Luke. He can never get to Luke. Then he wants to go after Ben Skywalker, which is the true Ben Skywalker, not Ben Solo, Disney. Get your story straight. As Asharad had survived so many years, over 100 years, he was constantly going after different Skywalkers. To no avail, he never could get to them. 4, we find out that Kenobi has been carrying both his and Anakin's saber. That makes sense. I mean, in A New Hope, Obi-Wan did have his lightsaber, and he had Anakin's saber, but if you remember, in his cave, it was in the chest. I guess the implication is that because he's carrying both sabers, he ends up fighting, who they're saying Sharad Het, with 2 lightsabers, and defeats him. But again, that's incorrect, because yes, Obi-Wan probably did have Anakin's lightsaber. Obviously he did if he gave it to Luke. But Asharad Het had taken his father's lightsaber when he was killed, because he saw his father killed, and continued to use it even after he built his own lightsaber. So Asharad was known for using 2 lightsabers. He was very lethal. So really the story is that while, yes, Obi-Wan would have had Anakin's lightsaber, he wasn't going around Tatooine with 2 lightsabers. He had put that away. They're confusing and mixing up the story because the one that was going around with 2 lightsabers was Asharad. So Asharad had his father, Sharad Het's lightsaber, and the one that he built, and was a very deadly Tusken Raider Jedi with 2 lightsabers. The battle that he has with Obi-Wan is with 2 lightsabers. Obi-Wan has 1. As many reported, internal conflict would revolve around Obi-Wan's PTSD and depression. I've heard this in the past, that they were going to talk about that and that he was going through a lot on Tatooine and meditating and trying to deal with everything. I don't know that that would make a very interesting story. Do we want to see Obi-Wan all depressed? For some reason, Disney wants to make all these great male Jedis depressed hermits. I don't know why, other than Kathleen's female agenda, but none of us want to see that. And when we meet Obi-Wan in Star Wars, he doesn't seem depressed. Quite the contrary. He's a little bit whimsical. You could tell he had a hard life and he had been on that planet and had been through stuff through the Clone Wars, but you didn't sense that he was like a bitter or angry or a shell-shocked type of man. So not only would it not make a very interesting story, it just doesn't really align with who Obi-Wan was. Obi-Wan seemed a pretty positive character in Star Wars. Climax of final episode involves Kenobi defeating Het with both his and Anakin's lightsabers. So like I said a minute ago, that's not what happens. Obi-Wan has one lightsaber, and Het, the son, Asherad, has his father and his lightsaber. He goes around Tatooine with two lightsabers. Obi-Wan beats him with one lightsaber, which also makes sense that Obi-Wan wouldn't be, one, drawing attention with two lightsabers, and two, that's Luke's inheritance. So he's not carrying it around. He has it stashed away for when the time is right. And then, of course, they're trying to tie it in. Final scenes are Obi-Wan putting Anakin's saber in the box, not to be reopened until A New Hope, and Obi-Wan watching Luke from a distance. So I just found this interesting. We don't know yet if this is real. In a sense, it fits, but it's more so just because of the indirect story of Asherad and his father Sharadhet being on Tatooine. It's an interesting way to pull in a protagonist for that era. I just explained the several inconsistencies that it's really the son, Asherad. Also the lightsaber problem, the Darth Vader issue that he wanted to find Vader. Also, incidentally, as I mentioned, he was hunting Skywalkers all this time, so long farther down the road when he ruled as a Sith for over 100 years. He then was killed by a student, or nearly killed. He ends up re-healing himself while the student takes over. He comes back and kills the student, rules for 7 more years, and finally comes across Cade Skywalker. Cade is a descendant, of course, of Anakin, Luke, and Ben Skywalker, along with many other Skywalkers down the line. So in the end, he faces Cade, and Cade kills him for once and for all. Ironically, the Skywalkers continue to save the galaxy, and he kills Asherad, who had been friends with Anakin during the Clone Wars. It's a pretty interesting story. It's very long and deep, over 100 years, but there's several inconsistencies, and one of the other inconsistencies is, as I mentioned earlier in this video, that the script was written for when Luke is 8 years old. So if he had come to Tatooine in 19 BBY, it would be roughly 11 BBY, whereas the Asherad story is 17 BBY when Luke is 2 years old. So that right there makes me question if this has validity, because the reports were that it was 8 years, and here he's saying, amongst it being his father and not Asherad, and the lightsabers and all these inconsistencies, Luke would be 2 years old here. So it doesn't really fit correctly, because the battle of Obi-Wan and Asherad is in 17 BBY. That's what I'm getting at. He would have been 2 years old and not 8 years old, as we found out, reported from Collider and everyone else, that Luke would have been 8 years old in the Kenobi story. Take this with a grain of salt. It just was posted roughly 22 hours ago now. There's a lot of inconsistencies, so I wouldn't take it too seriously, but Disney is constantly dipping into the EU that they decanonized. You know, that library that Kathleen says, we don't have any content, we don't have any backstories, we don't have any books or comic books or anything. Yet Disney is constantly having Lucasfilm dip back into all that content that doesn't exist, quote unquote. So it's pretty hilarious that Kathleen has the nerve to say that, and yet all these stories that keep coming out are the EU. In typical Disney fashion, they twist it and turn it as if no one's going to notice. Like, we'll take parts and we'll twist it and turn it around so that nobody notices. Know that Lucas gets a cut from pre-existing characters and vehicles and properties of Star Wars. So they try to cleverly twist things so that it doesn't appear as original Lucas content, but it is. And Lucas was the movies, not the EU, but those were still properties of George Lucas and Lucasfilm. Kathleen is trying to constantly change history and avoid Lucas getting a check. It's pretty hilarious, and it's also very sad, but here's where we're at. Just like I showed you, they took the scenes from the old Cartoon Network cartoon for Force Awakens. Well, here's one of several examples where Disney is dipping into the EU that they said is not canon and creating their new stories. I also wanted to mention that Ewan is saying how everything is okay, and he's saying that he read 80 to 90% of the scripts. So I want to point out that if the scripts were that good, why are they redoing them? He says they're really great. I also want to point out that what he has read is what is up till now the 2 scripts that were written by the writer that was fired. So what's going to happen? Just like they did in all the movies, Kathleen is going to have it all rewritten, and then a month, 6 months, whenever, Ewan is going to get the new scripts and be like, what the fuck is this? I'm gay now? Even though Obi-Wan or Ewan McGregor, sometimes it's easy to get them confused, is saying that he's on board and that everything's great. I bet you when he sees those new scripts, he's not going to be on board. Now, I don't know if he's locked into a contract already or how that's going to work out, but I can promise you he's not going to like these new scripts. And I think that Disney's clever. They probably sign people to these contracts with a base story, and then they go behind it and retcon everything and make it some other Kathleen Kennedy story. So it's going to be interesting to see in the coming months, maybe year, however long it takes, how Ewan McGregor is going to react to these new scripts and what he's going to say. I have a feeling he's going to want to try to get out of this, because when he sees those new scripts that Kathleen is going to oversee and retcon everything, he's not going to be happy. You have to remember that he's saying, I've read 80 to 90% of the scripts. Yeah, that's what exists now, but it's all about to be changed. And he's on board now saying how it's great and he can't wait. But is he going to be saying that in a month when they redo the entire scripts? That's why I'm saying that not only the fact that it's suspended indefinitely, that means it is canceled. But also, when he sees these new scripts, I'm very confident he's not going to be happy and he's not going to want to be a part of it. It will be pretty much a miracle at this point if the Obi-Wan Kenobi show does come to fruition. I'm not against it. I would love to see Obi-Wan on the screen, but not at the cost of damaging Star Wars. They have already done so much damage to the franchise, but at least the damage is in their nonsensical sequel trilogy. We all can just not acknowledge it, and it doesn't change 1 through 6. But when you're playing around with Obi-Wan Kenobi show, you're now endangering the classics. What is written in stone? What is Star Wars? Unless they somehow come up with some amazing story, even The Mandalorian hurts Star Wars canon. But for some reason, a lot of you are not seeing it, but if you really pay attention, they're causing problems with the Star Wars saga. And Obi-Wan is directly treading, not after Return of the Jedi, but in between 3 and 4. That's going to hurt the franchise at its core. I pray that the show does not happen, or that some miracle happens and it gets done correctly. But I can tell you, if they're going to go with what I just showed you, or something like that, they're already retconning and hurting the canon, because it's not Sharad Het, it's Asharad, his son, which comes much later in the time of Obi-Wan on Tatooine. His father is dead before the Clone Wars. Now, by all means, Disney is going to do everything in their power, regardless of them announcing it. They're going to do everything in their power to get Obi-Wan to happen, especially since Kathleen Kennedy put herself out there in D23 and is talking about the scripts are all done and we're ready to go, we're starting filming. Ewan has been on shows talking about, yeah, we're ready to go. So they're going to do everything in their power to make this happen. But at the end of the day, when everybody really starts to think about it, this is nothing but a nightmare. Even if everything was going smoothly, it's not a good idea. But we're having all kinds of problems, and I will reiterate, the show has been in talks for at least 4 years. It keeps getting delayed. They fired the writer. They've put it on indefinite hold, and everyone is not only gone home, but are looking for other work. They're redoing the scripts and looking for a new writer, and the show is being pushed back, and now won't even start filming till next year. It's very unlikely this show will happen, although I know that Disney's going to do everything that they can to try to make it happen. Look at the history of what Disney has done with Star Wars. They've destroyed the entire Skywalker saga and the Disney trilogy and greatly damaged the entire Star Wars name and franchise. The Cassian Andor show is up in the air. They don't know what they're going to do with Willow. They have other shows that were announced on Disney Plus and they're either disappeared or delayed. And now they're having these problems with Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's a sad state of affairs for Star Wars right now, and I think it's best that they just leave this alone. Tell me your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to see what you guys think, but I think it's best to leave well enough alone and not touch this show, because they're just going to do more damage, but now to the original Star Wars. And when they don't even have any kind of plan, as they've shown time and again, and they're rewriting and redoing and having these issues, they're gonna fuck it up. Leave it alone. What an embarrassment this entire Disney Star Wars thing has become. I hate to not have any Star Wars, but Disney just needs to take like a 5-year break, get Kathleen Kennedy out of there, restructure Lucasfilm, get their heads together and figure out what they're going to do, start hiring new people, because it's just a total mess. Nobody knows what's going on. They're retconning their own stuff, and it's just making them look foolish, and they're losing money. They're literally hemorrhaging millions of dollars, potentially even billions at this point, because they are so clueless and just think they can do whatever they want with Star Wars. And they're seeing that that's not the case. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the video. May the Force be with you.